the jungle room, the vines hang deep. Breeze and raindrops as the emerald boa slither. Face to face they draw their guests in close. Their calm invites us to come hither. Every corner built for curious mind. A jungle playground, nature design. Homes let instincts flow. Babies born, tiny lives begin to grow.
Greetings. Welcome to the Happy Basins podcast here on the Untamed and Unhinged Reptile channel on YouTube. I'm Amy Benzie, and we're here today with Brian Watkins from Hell Creek Reptiles. And Brian, before we start off talking about Brian being known for his thoughtful care of his reptiles, excellent genetics and breeding, and one of the things I really want to talk about today is how Brian got a voice in the reptile community with published articles and a lot of great knowledge that people respect and look up to him. And Brian is here with Hannibal.
Hey, yeah, this is Hannibal. This is my nearly 2-year-old captive bred crocodile monitor. And originally came from, come on, buddy, Tom Crutchfield. And I handle him basically every day. He's a real joy to work with. And I have a female for him too, so hopefully he wants to get down. Hopefully one day I can get him to, maybe not, get him to breed my female. So, yeah, he's probably, if I had to keep, out of all the reptiles I have, if I could only keep one, he'd probably be the one I keep. He's more like a dog. Yeah, he doesn't know he's a monitor. He thinks he's human.
Well, I might have met his parents or at least some of his relatives at the Crutchfields with Tom and Stacy. And I actually got to video Tom feeding his adult and with his hand, and it was just amazing. Just like a dog, the animal knew exactly how, that was his hand, and there was no lizard brain involved in that interaction. I love Hannibal. He's beautiful.
He's very smart. He's probably the smartest reptile I've ever had. I think, like I was saying, he thinks he's a human. He doesn't really realize he's a reptile. I'll lay on the couch and he'll lay on me and he'll crawl up onto me and fall asleep. He's really, really something else.
And did you go to Tom's house to get him, or did he?
No, I got him from somebody else who got him from Tom. So somebody, I guess that's friends with Tom. His name's Hunter, and he's friends with a bunch of other croc monitor keepers. And he had, I was lucky he was letting one of his animals go, and I got this one almost a year ago. So it was still kind of a baby. It was kind of big. He was a little nervous when I first got him. He really didn't like to be shipped, understandably, and it took a lot of work to get him to finally trust me. And now he's great. Yeah. But the other one, the female's not quite as easy to handle. She's a little more flighty. She's well caught, long-term captive. So I just got her about probably a couple months ago, and I'm still working with her. And what's that?
How old is she?
She's about 3. So I've introduced him, and he seems interested. She doesn't really seem to want to have anything to do with him yet. But I've been talking to some friends on how to breed them, and there's certain things you can do to get them to go. So
we call those mojo stimulation sessions.
Yeah. I mean, I put him in there maybe once a week, and she's getting used to him. He's trying. He chases her around. She's fast, so he's got to be quick.
What kind of habitat do they live in?
So here,
at your house.
Yeah. So I'm going to put him down here. I have a.
Thanks for coming.
On my property, I have a 1,800 square foot building in the back that I turned into my reptile breeding facility. and I'll show you. So I take him out every day, but I kind of keep him in that just like as a holding tank, but he's out all the time roaming around. And there's a female. She's in a pretty big 8 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot enclosure. So that's, I don't know if you saw that.
I did, yes. Chris made you nice and big so we could see it good.
Good. Yeah. So they, they're not in the house, right? So I let him wander around here, and I don't let her do that because she'll get into something and hide somewhere. So, but yeah, they have plenty of space to stretch out.
Very nice. That's a beautiful space you have.
Thanks.
Have you ever bred lizards before?
No. Well, I mean, if you want to count chameleons as a lizard, I've bred panther
Are
chameleons.
chameleons lizards?
I don't know. They're kind of a little different, but I have 6 Gila monsters. Let me grab this one.
Those are native to my hometown in Tucson, and I also got to hold some at Tom and Stacy. Oh my goodness, look at that.
So this is my adult male reticulated Gila monster.
Wow.
I don't have a name for him yet, but he's super cool.
Oh, he's stunning.
Yeah, and I have 5 babies that I'm raising up, so I'll have a colony of 6. And I heard these guys are pretty challenging to breed. So a friend of mine, Brian from High Desert Herbs, Brian Whitehead, he gave me all these on a trade. So, but he's bred them before, and so I'm gonna try my luck with that. They're fun to keep. I like them. I mean, if I'm gonna keep something and take care of it, I want to love it and like looking at it. You know what I mean? I guess you're an Emerald Basin person. Is that? I saw the intro. How many do you have?
More than I ever planned to.
So you breed them?
Yes, we actually didn't go into this to breed. We went into it because I wanted some sweet pets to love up on. And so I got them, you know, not really knowing anything about, I never even heard of them before. So we just went right into it, and our space and our collection has grown unbelievably. And so they do mate in our space, but we've never, the reason we started with the Mojo simulation sessions is because we had 2 people bring us males to mate with our females, and one of them is a really good mater and the other one is not mating. So his owner, or his keeper, his dad, wanted us to really try. So this is the first time we've actually really put an effort behind breeding, but other than that, they just do what they do around here.
Yeah, I've kept a couple regular northern emerald tree bows before in the past, and I got them from Triple L, and this was like in the late '90s, and I didn't really know what I was getting into. They weren't handleable. At least I didn't have the guts to. I wasn't brave enough to do it.
Well, we know a lot
And
more than we did. That was 30 years ago. Hard to believe.
yeah. So I never was successful with breeding them, but they were cool to look at. And yeah, I know now. I think they're bred in captivity pretty regularly. I mean, even I don't know about the Amazon basins. I don't really see them for sale very much, but I know there's a few people that keep them, and they are successful at it, and they're beautiful. They're my favorite. I've seen, who's that guy? He has the ones that have the alien.
Ed Marino.
Yeah. That guy makes some really awesome ones. Yeah.
Yes, he has some designer basins, that's for sure.
He's been doing it forever too. I think maybe 30, 40 years. Like ever since I can remember, he's been breeding those.
Yeah, he's the main guy everybody knows. He makes those designer emeralds. You would never find those in the wild, not like that.
No. Yeah, right.
They're truly designer, which is something that I also read a lot about you with genetics. You've got some designer stuff, don't you?
I do. I haven't really tallied up how many I have, but I have probably close to 200 super dwarf retics. Mostly, I have a handful of mainland snakes, but I have basically every genetic morph in my collection that's available in the U.S. So yeah, it's pretty diverse. I mainly deal with the super dwarfs. what my goal is to do is to, because I love mainland retics. They're just not for everybody.
And also, before you go on, can you just tell some of us about what a retic is and what a super dwarf retic is?
Sure. A reticulated python is the world's longest snake python. It's found all throughout Southeast Asia, like the Philippines, India, Thailand, Indonesia, all over the place.
Everglades.
And oh yeah, well now the Everglades, and I heard Costa Rica too. I think there's some that got loose somewhere around there. Yeah, so I don't know if they're that common in the Everglades, but they are. I think the Burmese pythons really are more dominant. But they are. People do. Unfortunately, it's sad. People release them, and it's like the perfect environment. But so super dwarf retics, they got their name a long time ago. The name was coined by Bob Clark and Mike Wilbanks, and it's a pretty clever name. I think before super dwarfs came on the scene, they were dwarfs, and those are the Jampia retic from Jampia Island, Jampia. And the super dwarfs come from some smaller islands that are close to that island, and they come from Kalatoa, Karumpa, Madu. Some people consider Coyotes as a super dwarf, but there's a bunch of other smaller islands that have them too. That not many people have visited or they haven't been imported from. But the people in Indonesia, they love those animals. You can still buy wild caught super dwarfs or Kalatoas or whatever locality in Indonesia, and they're still being imported into Europe. But retics are no longer allowed into the U.S. as import. Yeah.
And another question: a retic is just give us like the adult length of a female retic, a dwarf retic, and then the super dwarf. And then I also want to know that those are all natural sizes.
Sure. Okay, so first, they're called reticulated because of the pattern on their back. It's net-like, so reticulated means net-like, and it's a common word you see in terminology for medicine and stuff like that. So an adult female retic, we'll talk about averages. So on average in captivity, you could probably see them anywhere around 12 to 16, 17 feet. I mean, it depends on a lot of things, feeding, genetics, on whether or not they get bigger than that. I've gotten 4-year-old female mainlands that were like 11 feet, and they weren't really pushed as much to get big. Mainland males, they can stay anywhere from 7 to 12 feet and bigger, much bigger. So that's kind of the average range. And these animals, they grow like a lot of other reptiles. They go through like a real dramatic growth spurt their first 4 to 5 years of life. And when they go into their reproductive cycle and they're reproductively mature, their growth, a lot of the calories and all that goes into reproduction and not necessarily as much as into growth. But they still continue to grow throughout their lives. And an interesting thing I've noticed is that they kind of, in the wild, they'll adapt to the food source. So if there's a lot of big prey out there, they'll get bigger, to adjust to that. And vice versa, if there's smaller animals and prey items, then they don't grow quite as large. So they're very they're like that movie Alien, like the perfect predator. They adapt to their environment. Now super dwarfs, they're a lot smaller. So you have pure super dwarfs, or whatever locality, Kalatoa, Karumpa, Madu. They range. Some of them are a little bigger, but I think personally, in my opinion, I think they're all related. There's a lot of debate on whether or not they're separate subspecies or if they're clumped into one subspecies. But I think technically they're all clumped into the Jampianus subspecies, which is named after the Jampia retic. So they're all part of the same island system. So Jampias, dwarfs, they can get pretty big. I mean, they're like a mid-sized retic, and you don't really see them. They're not as common as they used to be. And they can get, males can get probably a little bit smaller than the mainland male. Maybe even they overlap. I think their sizes overlap a little bit. And and that's why you probably don't see them as much in hobby anymore because the people want smaller snakes, smaller retics, so they tend to go for the super dwarf locality. So, but so for like a Calatoa, Krumpa or Madu, you're looking at females. They can get anywhere from 6-7 feet to 10 feet, average. Maybe some are outliers, some may get a little bigger. Same thing with the mainlands. You have outliers, some are smaller, some are bigger. So, but that's just an average. I have mainland super dwarf Calatoa females that are about 9-10 feet. I also have one, and they're mature. They're about 5-6 years old. And I also have another one that's just barely 6 feet, and she's tiny. So I mean, the genetics does play a big role. Some have the bigger genetics, and they're giant pythons, right? But they're just like in dwarf form, super dwarf form. So they still have that trait to them. I think just to scale down a lot. So, but males, 5-6 feet on the low end to 8 feet, maybe 9 feet. It kind of all depends, but that's just an average to give you an idea of the sizes. And then you have the super dwarf crosses, which is it's the different. So that's a whole other category. And they're somewhere in between the super dwarf and the mainlands. And from my experience, they're about half the size of mainlands. And they do really have a stronger super dwarf influence than, depending on their percentage. 50% is the standard percentage to be considered a super dwarf. And so anything less than that is really technically, I mean, it's a low percentage super dwarf or more mainland. So it's more of a mainland.
I'm sorry.
It's
can interrupt again for just a second. I saw some comments over here that you guys are seeing some choppiness. I'm not seeing any choppiness. Are you, Chris? Brian?
Yeah.
So two different people said it. So I don't think everybody.
I have Wi-Fi in here in my shop, so I'm good to go. I see you perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah. So there, three of us are not choppy. So you guys just keep saying whether it's choppy. Tara, I knew it was you because you said Amy Pants. So even though you were from your admin office, I knew. All right, Brian, let's start talking. That was great. Now we know the different sizes. And do you think that it's the available prey that caused the super dwarfs to get extra small? You said those came from the islands?
So there's a lot of, I guess the easiest way to put it, bro science, a lot of misconceptions, a lot of things they see something and they jump to conclusions, and it's not really based on, real evidence. So, from my understanding, from what I've learned studying biology and evolution and paleontology, that it's kind of a long story, but the area in Indonesia that about 1 million years ago, there was this place called Sundaland, and you can Google it, look it up. It's really interesting. All the land masses in Southeast Asia were connected at one time, and sea level was much lower than it is today. So all the and retics they existed. So, and they were spread all throughout that continent. And when sea level started to rise and the polar ice cap started to melt, it started to become isolated into different localities. Like the Philippines, is a bunch of thousands of islands. All that used to be above sea level, but now it's not. So that applies to basically every landmass you see out there, Indonesia, all the different countries. And so over.
I lost you.
Did you get me?
There you are. I didn't hear the
last sorry. Words. Yeah, so over that long period of time, these animals have evolved on these smaller landmasses. So they've been selected through evolution to be smaller. So that's how you see these super dwarfs. It's not necessarily because of the food is also a reflection of that change in their environment, because larger animals aren't able to support themselves, right? So there's a lot of factors that come into play with that. But yes, it is the food, but it also is change in their environment, the climate, and isolation and genetic diversity and all that stuff.
And you were, before we got on the size track and all, you were going to tell us what you do. I'm very interested to hear about your genetics mixing process. I don't know all of the exact right words for that.
Yeah, so they're actually called, the technical term is they're called intergrades, because you're mixing two different subspecies. But a lot of people call them crosses. So they're super dwarf crosses. and the cross refers to breeding a mainland into a super dwarf. And so you're combining those two genes together to make smaller snakes. And the whole point is to selectively breed over generations to make them smaller. And it works. I have mature adult females that are small. It really works. So if you want a retic and you want a small one, you want to get either a pure super dwarf or a super dwarf cross that's at least 50% or higher.
And just tell us one more time, because there was a lot of information. What is the average size of a female super dwarf? And then what's the size of what you're doing?
So a pure super dwarf or a cross?
The pure, just to recap, so we can.
Okay, so pures, you range anywhere from 6 feet to 10 feet. So it's about average, right in there somewhere. And the crosses, you can still 7 feet on the lower end up to, they can get up to 12 feet and over, but we're trying to keep it in the average. And that's kind of less common to see them get that big. And also there's something, when you breed a pure super dwarf, let's say to a super dwarf cross, the babies, they're gonna have a higher concentration of super dwarf blood in them, as opposed to, let's say and all that genetics is going to be passed on to the babies. So if you breed a cross to a cross, you get more variation. And I think that's where you start seeing a lot of these bigger super dwarf crosses. Is you really can't predict, because it's osmosis, it's completely random. You can't really tell how much mainland is being transferred over to the babies, right, to the next generation. So
when you have a litter, or in your case it's a clutch, when you have a clutch of babies, when those babies come out, you have no idea like which ones will be 7 feet or more likely to be 7 and which ones are more likely to be 10.
I can do an average. So no, there really is no way to tell, but you can be more certain based on the parents that you breed. So I don't hold back on feeding any of my animals. I don't overfeed them, but I feed them appropriately. I vary the meal size, and frequency at times. I've tried to make it more natural, but I give them plenty of food to grow to their potential. And so what I do is I believe that you can't selectively breed for size unless you're feeding your animals, and you can pick the ones that are smaller, and then you select those to breed, and that those traits are passed on, from generation to generation. So that's my philosophy. That's how I do things. Other people, they do things differently. So I mean, it's a lot of variation.
Another question. We have a couple basins that are smaller, and I noticed that basins are getting smaller. People are coming out with smaller and smaller. And my husband and I sometimes joke that if Bella and Cash ever mated, or those are two males, but if Bella and so-and-so, Mommy Wada, ever mated, they would be apartment-sized emeralds. Is that true? If our two small, like way smaller than all of the others, would we be likely to get more small emeralds? Is it the same?
I think so. If all things being equal, they've been fed appropriately. Their size hasn't been stunted. They're given everything that they need to grow to their maximum potential. If they're small, after all that, then they have the genes for being small, and it just makes sense that the babies will be small. Now, I think you will have some variation. Maybe a handful of them will have those traits. Maybe a handful won't. So it's kind of random. The way genetics works is pretty amazing, but it is unpredictable in a lot of ways, and that's what makes it perfect, because that's how animals survive, right? It's adaptability. It's being able to the survival of the fittest, right? So that's just the way we are. That's the way life is. So
Very.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you could eventually, over several generations, be making, dwarf emerald tree bows. I mean, tiny ones. I'm sure it's possible. Yeah, apartment size. Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
And when you have a 7 foot, like I have 2 emeralds that are over 6 foot, over 6.5 feet. But emeralds only get, where's my camera? A certain diameter. But your
Yeah.
super dwarf pythons at 7 feet would be much thicker. Is that true?
They're about the size of a carpet python.
Mm-hmm.
So like a large carpet python. They're not nearly as robust as a mainland. Mainlands are a lot thicker. The super dwarfs are much thinner. They're probably more not as thin as the emerald, but more like a carpet python size. Now, it all depends on how you feed them too. I mean, the more you feed them, obviously, the fatter they'll be. But also another thing too. Like I think it's nearly impossible to overfeed the baby retic. All it does is all those calories goes right into growth. I've never seen an obese baby retic. They just grow like by order of magnitude. Like literally, this tiny little 8-inch snake or whatever, in a year will have like grown to 3 feet, or whatever, 4 feet.
Well, what about Hannibal?
Mainland's even way bigger.
Hannibal's grown a lot in 2.5 years.
These are actually, yeah. I'm amazed. He's about 6 feet, and when I got him, he was probably 4 feet maybe. And I asked my friend, I'm like, dude, what's up with this snake? What's up with this lizard, dude? It grows so fast. And he said, yeah, croc monitors are like the fastest growing lizard species known. I don't know about Komodo dragons, but they grow really fast, and I have no problem with that. I want him to get big. So.
Yeah, he's stunning.
Thank you.
All right, back to genetics. And it'll be interesting to see what you end up doing with lizards, with all of your science.
Yeah, not many people produce, captive bred croc monitors, and I think it's really worth doing with this species. It will, if more people did it, it would reduce the amount of pressures being put on wild populations. The pet trade, them being imported, taken out of the wild. I think if there are more captive bred ones available, people would be less likely to buy those, and there'd be less demand for it. And I think, honestly, they make a great pet lizard, regardless of how dangerous people think they are. I mean, Hannibal's like, if all captive bred croc monitors are like him, they're perfect. But I know they're not, but he's awesome.
Well, love and consistency and love. That's what really makes them like that.
Yeah.
All right, back to the genetics. Let's talk about the different things you've done. You've done things with size, but you also mentioned that reticulated means a pattern. So have you done other genetics to change or, progress patterns?
Yeah, so we all have certain things we like. We like to wear certain kinds of clothes, shoes. We have personal preferences about things. And so that applies to what I see in these animals. And I see like, for instance, I don't know if you know what a tiger morph is or motley retic morph is. There's a lot of look, but there's also a lot of variations on that. And what breeders do is they'll pick out stuff they like, and then they'll run with it and breed it and pass it on. And so that's what I do. And it's just whatever I see that pops out that I want to keep, that's what I'll breed. And it's hard to predict what's good. I've had snakes that I hatched it was totally unexpected. I was like, wow, I didn't know that gene could do that, and well, I'm going to keep that, and so it's kind of hard to say. I just have things that I like. I love piebald retics. I really like kind of really cool circular patterns. So Aztec is really one of my favorite morphs now. I got an Aztec, and I don't know if you've ever seen one. If you haven't, you got to check it out.
King snake.
It might. I don't know why they named it an Aztec. I know they do name when they do come up with names like Motley. There's a Motley boa, and I don't know if there's similarities in those genes, but they're really awesome looking. So if I could take, the more unusual it looks, the more I like it, I guess, basically. So it's really hard to say where I'm going with it, but I have things that I like that I run with, and I never know when I'm going to hatch. The next season. Something totally unexpected might pop up.
Oh, so. Yeah, that's really beautiful. You guys probably can't see it that good, but
yeah,
you guys can Google Aztec reticulated python, And I can see, like, my little king snake's name is Serapi because she looks like a Native American handmade blanket.
Oh,
Her
okay.
pattern,
Cool.
and I can see that in this pattern,
Yeah.
like
Oh, I never thought of that. It's like
a woven.
yeah, it's like yeah. Now I see that. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, I can definitely see looking at something like that and wanting to reproduce it. Just like we said about Ed Moreno, that's what he's doing. He's reproducing something, any cool trait that he sees. As far as I know, I don't know what Ed Moreno does.
If I could make super retics with faces on their back, I would definitely do something like that. That'd be like alien faces or something crazy like that. Definitely would be pretty cool.
For sure. So is this Aztec is not your creation? Do you have
No,
titles for any of the morphs?
no, no. I guess just combinations of stuff, but not the way it goes. I don't know about other species, but back when you could import retics into the country, and I think they still do this in other countries in the UK. If a hunter finds a new unusual snake in the wild, and they typically don't name it, they just sell it, for X amount of money, and the person who buys it and brings it into the country gets to name it. So Tiger retic is an example. Motley, I think Bob's named a lot of stuff. So is Nerd. Nerd is named Phantom, Orange Ghost Stripe, Anthrax. I can't think of anything else, but typically it's the naming rights are reserved for the person who imports the animal. We usually don't name combinations, new things. Like I hatched out some new combos, like a purple snow, golden child, Motley Tiger. I mean, I kind of get laughed at if I said, "Oh, this is a blah," X, Y, and Z. It's a new. It's basically I wouldn't do that either because it's just it doesn't really say what it is. It's a purple snow, golden child, Motley Tiger. I don't know. Some people
Sounds like a mushroom.
people like a what?
Mushroom.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, let's see. Jay Brewer from Prehistoric Pets. Actually, I don't know who named it titanium. It's a morph that was imported a long time ago. I remember seeing it for sale. Somebody actually back then contacted me, and this guy, the seller, was trying to find anybody to buy it, and he wanted 30 grand for it. And at that time, I couldn't even afford anything near that. But Jay ended up with it. I think he named it titanium, and then the babies came out, and he named him Citron. And it wasn't even proven out yet to be genetic. Just the babies looked different, and then he proved out the gene. But he would name different combinations of the titanium, like plutonium and all kinds of weird stuff, and they're never really stuck. Now people just call it what it is, like what genes are in it. So
what does it mean exactly to prove out a gene? I can kind of imagine, but what exactly does it mean?
So, for instance, like albino, right? So Bob Clark imported the first albino Burmese python back in the 70s. So, I mean, obviously, you look at it, it looks like an albino, but you're not sure what it is exactly because you haven't bred it to see what it produces. So, when he bred it, he made regular looking Burmese pythons. So, that first generation, it wasn't proven to be a genetic trait that could be passed on from generation to generation. Once he raised up the babies and bred those, he got albinos. He proved out the trait. So that's what's meant by proving it out.
And how many generations has to show it before it's proven? Just the second?
Well, it depends if it's a recessive or if it's a incomplete dominant or co-dominant. If it's a recessive, and it depends on how obvious the trait is displayed. Like an albino's an albino. There's no mistaking an albino. But if it's something else, like a pattern mutation, you're not quite sure. It might take more than 2 generations. But if it's a incomplete dominant or co-dominant, it's going to show in the very first generation. So if you breed a tiger, when they imported the first tiger, they bred it to a normal retic, and it made half tigers. So, and also you can look at the spread of the phenotypes. So the amount of visuals that you get in a clutch. A codom or incomplete codom will have basically a predictable amount in each clutch. It's either 50% or 100%, will show the trait. So recessive is different, and it's a different spread. So I mean, if you breed a het to a het for a recessive trait, the offspring will be 25% visual. So it really depends on that too. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating.
It really is, just to be able, like I said, we just joke around about making apartment size emeralds, but if I do let those two to be together, maybe it's possible after 2 generations I could prove that it is.
Yeah, I mean, well, size I think it could be. I mean, you never know with genetics, but size is typically a polygenic trait. So there's multiple genes that are involved with size. So I think size would be something you'd have to select from generation to generation, rather than it being something that would be a simple genetic inheritance. So like a recessive trait, you have the trait is on a certain location on a gene, and when those genes combine from both parents, they're predictable every time. So polygenic traits are more unpredictable, and they are determined by multiple genes. So I mean, if you're lucky, you get something that is, man. If you could get like a codominant for apartment size, you'd be in a good spot. Yeah.
The animals would at least get a better space to live in, because people wouldn't need such a large space, even though they
Right.
don't think they do, but they do.
Yeah, I agree. I and when I started out, I I lived in an apartment, and a lot of people do, and it's hard not to fill your apartment up with reptiles. So, I remember when I first got into reptiles, like as an adult, and I was living on my own. I mean, I went crazy. I bought, this is when vision cages were like $400 or $500, and I lived in Southern California, and they manufactured them there, so I could just go get them, and I filled my apartment up with vision cages and a bunch of reptiles, and I was like, whoa, that's a lot of work. It's fun though.
It really is. It's a great hobby. We love it. Our hobbies over the years went from boating to scuba diving, and this is our favorite by far, just building this space. We just love creating this space.
Along the lines of what we were talking about with the polygenic, so what Ed Marino is doing with those patterns, that's a polygenic thing that he's, unless I'm wrong, unless he's found some type of pattern mutation that is codominant recessive, but I think he's selectively bred for that over many, many generations, to the point where it's dominant now in everything that he produces. So I got a question for you though. Have you ever seen a albino emerald tree boa?
No.
I haven't either.
Although there are very high yellow caninus, the Corellius
Really?
caninus, the northern version or species, they have very, very high yellow emeralds. And there was one that is here in the United States. I actually got to meet, because I do travel to the jungle to observe them in the wild. And so
Wow.
I have friends over there, and one of my friends had a beautiful high yellow that I got to meet before she was exported, and she ended up over in Florida, and they were calling her not a chondro because she looked just like a green tree python.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. I've seen mite phase emerald tree boas. I don't know if that's,
What is it?
is that a mite phase, or are they're black? They have black spots on their back.
Yeah.
You ever heard that?
Kevin over at Nerd has been calling them granite, his granite
Okay.
pattern. And I think he has another type of animal that he has a granite of. I don't know all about his ball pythons, but yes, he's been calling those black spots granite. I never heard it called what you said. Say it again.
Mite phase, like snake mites.
Oh,
I think granite is way better of a name. I've never heard of that.
we don't want to think about that. So yeah, the granite, and then also there's the dark phase that has like a really high dark color, which is one of the males that my friends brought over here right now, that is half brother to Ed Marino's Draco, who is black. Everywhere you would see a black
Oh,
green emerald, he's black.
I think I've seen that one before. It's amazing. I've seen a blue too, right? They're like, I've seen some blue ones. Am I
Those
mistaken?
would be the green tree pythons. They do have
Oh,
gold and blue. Although these
Okay.
emeralds do have a beautiful turquoise line, some of them where they're green and yellow meet. That would be a really cool genetic to get in. And actually both litters of my babies came from that father. So I don't have any big enough yet to see if that color is coming in, but I'll be excited to see.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen an albino Gila monster, but there's a few floating around. I've seen some photos online, and man, they look awesome. That'd be something I'd love to have. Anything albino would look cool. Even though, I mean, they have issues with their eyes and stuff. I think they're nocturnal mostly, so it's not really an issue. But I imagine for other species that, depending on the sun, it wouldn't be a good thing.
I didn't even know that. So albinos have that trait in their vision.
Yeah. So a lot of some, I don't want to say a lot of, but some genetic mutations. So that there's a golden child and there's a super golden child. So golden child is incomplete dominant. You could breed a golden child to a normal and get half golden childs in the first generation. If you take a golden child, and they'll all be healthy, totally fine, right? I've never seen any issues with them. But if you breed a golden child to a golden child, they have neurological issues. They have head wobble and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a motley golden child. That's a beautiful snake. But yeah, that's got a golden child in it. So they have deleterious traits attached to them. So albino, it's either complete absence or partial absence of the melanin pigment. And melanin, I mean, it protects you from UV radiation. And so if you don't have it, like albino that are albino, they can't sit in the sun for very long because they get burned pretty bad. So, and they have photosensitivity. So the melanin protects you, but it looks cool, but there's certain things that are attached to that gene that can be harmful.
And I know there's also another ball python that has that, the spider or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this is another thing. And I read a peer-reviewed publication, scientific paper talking about that. And so what they did in this study is they examined the ear bones in these snakes, that had the spider trait, and they found that there was the bones were deformed in such a way that it caused it disturbed their equilibrium, so it made them they couldn't balance themselves properly, so they got the head wobble. So that's why they have that, and it's so that morph. So the same thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of a jaguar reticulated python. It has the same issue, and some of them have very. I had one that had no wobble, but all the babies I bred it, and all the babies had it. So it can skip generations, or it can carry it and not show the head wobble. So, and in the UK, they have a different line of the same genetic trait. It's called Harlequin. It doesn't have that attached to it. So it's weird. There's different, like, I think certain, I don't know if you know what anthrax is. It's a morph in Retics. They found them in different locations, in different populations of Retics throughout Southeast Asia. So it's something it's in the DNA of the species. Same with albinism and a lot of these other genetic mutations, and they pop up in different populations. And for some reason, the Harlequin doesn't show it. It's actually more beautiful looking than I think the jaguar, but we can't import them here because they're banned. So it's kind of a bummer. We're stuck with jaguars.
So they would have to come out with it in a super dwarf, and then it would be allowed.
No, super dwarves are banned too. anything, they're not anything reticulatus. They don't recognize they don't recognize the subspecies as being separate. It's government bureaucracy. They just don't care. If it's a large python and its name's on the list, to be honest, they don't care. It's still a Malayo python, reticulatus, and it's not allowed. I wish they would change that, but they that doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime in the near future.
So it's kind of like the basins. What's here is here, and we have to make more in order to get more.
Yep. Unfortunately,
I heard a rumor that Peru was considering opening up exportation, which would open up to basins.
Oh wow!
But those
That's
basins don't generally have a stripe.
So are they banned? Are Amazon basins banned from importation, or is it the country that's banning the export?
Country, no basins can be exported, even where northerns are legal. Like, for example, Suriname and Guyana. I'm not sure if French Guyana is legal. I don't think so, but I don't remember. I don't know if I ever knew that. But Suriname and Guyana both export northerns, and it used to be that you could get a shipment of 30 years ago, northerns and basins all in one because they didn't distinguish. But now they're very, very strict. And my friend who is the officer over there for that type of things, exporting emeralds and decision making, says that you can't just say any single trait. Some of these animals, like for example, the high yellow one I was talking about, you have to look at the whole entire animal to even be able to tell which species it is in some cases, not all cases.
That's interesting. I kind of in a way agree with some of these regulations, and in a way I don't. I mean, from a conservation perspective, I think it's good for wild populations, but at the same time, it's not good for reptile keepers. And these animals need to thrive in the wild, and if they're being exploited, that's a bad thing. And I think for them to regulate it is good. But at the same time, and maybe there's enough of these animals in our country. Maybe we have enough. Maybe they don't need to be exported or taken out of the wild. And that's what I was saying earlier about the croc monitors. I mean, if we can breed them in captivity, then it can thrive in the wild. Then there won't be any demand for it, and people won't be snatching them up, and throwing them into a bag or whatever, and smuggling them in here, however, exporting them or whatever. And a lot of these animals die when they come over here on the way. It's pretty sad, and it's all money driven. And it's unfortunate, but I think it's people like us, keepers that want to preserve these animals and use them, for fun, but also to educate people. And I think educating the public also helps people perceive the importance of conservation, of these animals in the wild, so.
Yes, we definitely need conservation for their habitats. I see these animals in the wild, and I've worked with crews of trappers. I have friends who are exporters. I've been on all, different journeys on different sides of the exportation process. And I've seen how the collection of these animals in those countries does have to be done with a license. You have exporters who are running a beautiful, clean, very good, legit business. And then, of course, you have exporters who are crap. So, just like any business, you have order, and then most of those animals don't make it, like you said. But there are good exporters who are doing things in a good way. And I really changed my vision on exportation after being over there so many times, because I see that those wild animals are not living their best life. Their habitats are being destroyed. Some of them are diseased, all kinds of different things. So I can really get on board with both sides. If it's done properly, then our animals will survive. And there's a quota of how many animals that can be shipped out by however many exporters. So those animals are going to keep coming in because that's a business on that end. No matter if we're demanding it as reptile keepers, people will just keep buying the inexpensive wild caught. So they're going to keep coming. So don't shy away from getting a good import just because you don't want to support the cause. They're going to come in either way. Just be a good parent. That's all that matters.
Well, I remember before the ban on Retics, there was a lot of wild caught stuff coming in, and they were hard to get eating. There was a lot in common with wild caught emerald tree boas, or it's all the same issues. They just didn't really acclimate well. It took a long time. They basically built the foundation for a lot of the captive bred stuff here in the United States. But I agree. I think there's a much bigger problem, and with deforestation and habitat destruction and a lot of other stuff, and it's sad. And I mean, what do you do? I mean, these countries, a lot of them are third world countries, and they want to modernize, and they have all this untouched, all these untouched resources in the forest, and naturally they're going to want to take advantage of that, But I think it's difficult. I think people like us, we're at least making an attempt to preserve the species in one way or another. One day maybe these animals will be extinct, and they won't have a natural habitat anymore, but they'll be kept in zoos and breeding facilities and stuff like that, and people can enjoy them still. They're not extinct. They're being preserved in some way.
Definitely. That's another big part of my take on the exportation side. When it's done correctly, it can be really good for the animals. I am very interested in the voice that you have in the reptile community. When I read that you had published articles and you had a really popular article in Reptile magazine, I really wanted to talk about how that process starts. But first, if Chris is out there, he is going to play the fabulous video from our sponsors here at the Untamed and Unhinged Reptile Network channel on YouTube. So Chris, are you out there?
Lights come on, pulse in the air, we unite. Cold-blooded got 5 feet in the night. Cold-blooded caffeine, fueling the fight. Reptile crew got our backs tight. CIB reptiles rolling with soul. Oh no, soul lifting a goal. Together we burn like burning coal. Elevate, more fries in the show. Flow, better crew, yeah, watch them go. Indigo, reptile, set the glow. Shut up, feelings, shut out feelings. Ship your reptiles, make life better. South Bay reptiles through every weather. I'm a blue republic. No fakes, no breaks, we're here to publish. Taking it higher, dreams embellished. Sponsors love through beats, we rise. Show it thanks to that under the skies. Unite the world, reptile dies. Cold blood, warm hearts, no disguise.
All right, we're back with Brian Watkins from Hell Creek Reptiles, and Brian is going to talk to us about what it takes to become a person who gets a voice in the reptile community. And tell us a little bit about your article, and then just tell us how you got there.
So the article that I had published.
I know you have multiples, but the really popular one.
Yeah. So the one that in Reptiles magazine. Okay, buddy. It basically it goes into just about everything for customers to they can refer to that. It basically answers every question one might have about how to take care of them. Their natural history. Their their husbandry requirements and all that stuff. Feeding. So it was interesting how it happened. I was at a show in Southern California, and I just happened to be by the Reptiles magazine booth, and I think his name is John, the editor. Anyway, I stopped at his booth, and I was like, wow, man, I I love Reptiles magazine. I used to, you know, I subscribed back in the day. I remember, back before the internet was really a thing. It was like the only way to really tap into the reptile community. And we talked for a little while. And he stopped by my booth and he was impressed. And he said, "Hey, you want to do an article on super dwarves?" And I was like, "Yeah." So that's how he offered me to write up an article on him, and that's what I did. I wrote up a nice little article and submitted it to him, and it got published. So it was just a matter of, I guess, right place, right time, and showing that enthusiasm, the passion for what I do, and he's a super nice guy. And I remember, going through like the check stand at whatever, That's Smart or whatever back in the day, and they'd have Reptiles magazines, with all the other magazines by the cash register, and I always wanted to check it out. I remember seeing, the new Retics Bob Clark was making, and it was just kind of a cool thing. And Reptiles magazine is still pretty cool. So I still have a subscription. I have a couple friends that subscribe, and yeah, so that's how that got published. But that was kind of cool to actually, because I remember reading Bob Clark's articles and other people, their articles in the magazine, and it was kind of a dream come true. Like, hey, man, I never thought one day when I got into reptiles, I'd be writing an article for them too, So yeah, it's super cool.
Look at those kisses that he's giving you.
Yeah. Yeah, Hannibal, he likes to show affection.
Yeah, I bet that was a real honor. I know that would really be something to be featured in a magazine that you grew up loving, always wanting,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what other hobbies you have, but like, I don't know, whatever it is, imagine if you got an article published in that too, or even in reptile, what if you wrote an article about basins or and it got published, you'd be pretty stoked about that too.
Heck yeah, I would be super proud of that.
Well, you never know. Contact John. He may ask, he may say, okay, we'll submit something.
Yeah. Sometimes I think about writing something up and just sending it out, but that's work. So good job.
It is. It is. And yeah, I also write some stuff for my blog on my website. I'm also a grad student, so I do a lot of writing. And if I'm writing about something I'm interested in, it's not really work. It's fun. So, but I've always wanted to. I was thinking of writing a book about crocodile monitors because I've never seen one.
It's the best way to learn all that research you have to do for it.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of other people. There'd be a lot of great resources, and they're wonderful animals, and they kind of have a bad reputation for being dangerous, which is true. They can be dangerous, but so can a lot of dogs are dangerous too. A lot of what's that?
That's what I always say. Dogs, family dogs, kill family members, and cats can give you a lifelong disease with a friendly scratch.
Exactly. So I mean, they probably have a reputation that's unwarranted. That's unwarranted. So that's something I thought about doing. I think if it's something, if you really love what you do, it's fun. It's worth putting the time and effort into it, and it's more if you want to share your knowledge with, you want to help educate people and share your knowledge with people. You know what I mean? You like talking about it.
Absolutely. It is definitely always fun to share. I love the feedback on sharing what we do here. So I know it's very rewarding.
Yes, I agree. And it's funny, I get to talk to people. I work in the medical field, and a couple coworkers that are into reptiles at my work, and we sit there and chat, 15, 20 minutes, just on and on about stuff. But I got other coworkers, like I had this one coworker when I first started working at this one hospital, and I didn't warn her, and she's like frightened, scared. She like freaked out. I showed her, she's like, "Oh my God." I was like, what are you freaked out about? She's like, "I hate snakes." Oh, okay. So I never showed her those pictures again. But a lot of people ask me questions, and I think there's a lot more public interest. People, they want to know more about them, and I think it's a good vessel to teach people about science. A good way to communicate things about science. Teach people about these animals and our world.
Definitely. I I get that a lot. As I'm so proud of my sweet lovelies, and they're so social. They're such great ambassadors, and I have so many great videos of people holding all of them at once, all the way from little children to elderly people who've never touched a snake. And I'm so
Yeah.
proud of those. And sometimes I'll go to show a video and I get that, oh, I don't want to see that. And it's hard. So I
Yeah.
start with my Jaja, my sweet, beautiful green iguana. Nobody can resist that face. And sometimes I'll just, instead of going straight to the snakes, I'll start with Jaja and the tortoises. And then I find that I can show more snake videos that way.
I had someone reach out to me locally through Instagram, and they asked me if I would do presentations at schools. And I never, I mean, I thought about it in the past, but I never really had enough animals to do it, and now I do, and I have some people that can help me do it too, moving the animals and handling them and stuff.
Well, Hannibal,
And
he is really going to be perfect.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So he would be like a star of the show. But I have other snakes, and I think, for me, it would be awesome. I remember when I was a little kid, and I can't say I remember someone ever bringing a giant Burmese python to my classroom, but if they did, we would have been like, wow, this is the best thing ever. Like, so I can imagine just, making, like whatever, 5th grade, 4th grade school kids, just having this awesome day at school, learning about reptiles.
Definitely. That's the kind of thing we don't forget as kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's such a feeling. People try to explain how they feel holding the snakes. And I had one man say, I don't mean like what it feels like with my hands. I mean what it feels like inside me. It's like, yes, that's it. It's a feeling.
Well, when I first got Hannibal, I was scared of him. And I mean, just because if he bit, he could, I would need stitches. So, I mean, I was always careful. I wear gloves and stuff. And when I first started holding him without gloves, and he was calm and curious and started to show trust in me, that's the feeling I got. It wasn't just like, oh, wow, he feels cool. It was like, whoa, I have this like really just a dinosaur that's just hanging out on me,
It really is. I feel that with my Jaja, so I can just imagine how it feels with that big crocodile monitor. And I did, like I said, I got to experience them in real life firsthand with Tom. So that was really incredible.
Did you hold any of those or just?
No, I didn't hold him, but I did like put my hand all the way up right in front and let his tongue lick my fingers.
Yeah.
And then I was videoing like, well, you can't see how far away my camera is, but a little bit more than my arm length away while Tom was feeding them. So I did get a full up close interaction.
They get big, don't they? The males, they're huge. Yeah.
As big as
so,
me.
Huh?
As big as
As big
me.
as you?
Yeah.
I mean, and Hannibal seems he's almost 6 feet. He's a big monitor, but he still has he's only a baby still. He has a lot of room to grow. So I can't wait till he gets 9 feet or whatever they get. I've heard they can get.
I said as big as me, but I meant way bigger, like 6 feet. I know that Toms are bigger than Hannibal, and I'm only 5'4", so they were much bigger than me.
Yeah.
And another thing too is my husband had never touched a reptile, never touched a snake, never dealt with reptiles in his life until we got these emeralds. And then years later, we adopted our little Jaja, the iguana, and the tortoises, like all in the same 6 weeks. We rescued them, and my husband was just amazed that they could blink their eyes. And lizards definitely have a much more interactive personality that we know of. Which brings me to the next thing I want to talk to you about, which is these habitats and the spaces where we keep our animals. I always want to give a hands down to the old school guys who taught us the right temperatures and humidities and the right environment. But some of us have progressed so much to make sure that our animals are enriched and thinking and actually enjoying life. And you are one of those thoughtful keepers.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I agree with you. I think these animals need a lot more human interaction and more enrichment activity than was previously thought. I mean, they can't. What kind of life is it just sitting in a enclosure, and not being able to come out and do anything? And I think space and resources is an issue too. I mean, I have the space to let them out. I can take them out in my backyard or next door. There's this huge open field next door. There's not many people around here, so I can do stuff like that. I had a tree. I have a tree outside. It's a dead tree that I put feet on so they can hang on and crawl and stuff like that. And I see definitely a difference, and they're handling them. They enjoy. They associate you with coming out and exploring and stuff like that instead of somebody who's just going to come and clean their cage or something. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely interesting to watch them think and enjoy the little enrichments that we do give them, because they do. Every time we give them something, they start using it.
Yeah, I agree. I think some people, I guess whatever people do is cool. I mean, I've seen people get those little balls, or like a waffle ball or something, and they throw them in their ball python enclosure. And I mean, if they use it, that's cool. I think just being able to come out of their enclosure and smelling new smells and being outside of their enclosure is good too. As good as anything else.
Definitely. And any little thing, I sit on we're doing a roundtable series with a really great group of people. There are 8 of us, and we're on Snake Therapy's YouTube channel, and we're talking about all of the different little ways to offer enrichment. Even if you have tubs and racks, there are still so many ways to just offer little things to be curious about, and new smells and coming out once in a while. And like you said, the little toys that you could find in the dog and cat and bird especially, aisles at the grocery store. Even sometimes you could pick up a little something they might enjoy, just to make sure it's safe.
Yeah. I have enclosures, and I also have racks. So I keep my babies in racks, and once they get up to about a year and a half or 2 years old, they graduate to like an enclosure. And I think it depends on the species. I've never kept a ball python before, but I know they're reclusive. I think they live a lot of their life underground. I may be wrong about that. I don't know. But reticulated pythons are similar. They're nocturnal. They do come out during the day to bask and to warm up, but typically they're most active at night. And the thing about retics, and this probably applies to a lot of pythons and constrictors, they don't mind, like their enclosure is one big hide spot for them. You know what I mean? And it's funny, if you put a retic in a 10-foot or 20-foot enclosure and you give them a hide spot, they may or may not use it. Their enclosure is their hide spot. You know what I mean? So it just depends on the species too. I mean, you deal with arboreal species, and I'm sure they utilize all kinds of different perches and stuff that you offer them. And I mean, I don't know, do you put those little dog toys in there with them? If you did, they probably wouldn't use it.
They'll wrap around anything, but my big thing that I believe in is because I deal with them in the wild, we don't look for them in trees. We look for them in full vine systems from top to bottom, and we can find them all the way down at the river to 30 feet up or higher. About 30 to 45 feet up. They're not as high as people think that they always are, and they come down often. And they slither. My whole room down here, the ceiling is covered in vines that I rescued trees from down by the river here in central Arkansas, and cut them off the trees, wrapped around, power washed and shellacked. And these animals come out here and utilize this whole entire room. I mean, I'll leave them out for 10 days at a time, and they'll just sleep all day and move all around at night. They love it.
Well, that's you're fortunate that you've been able to go into the wild where they live and see, what they do and their behavior. And I guess South America is not far away. I mean, not that far away. It's not as far away as Indonesia.
No.
Yeah, so it'd be harder. And I've seen people who've gone out and tried to catch them in the wild and stuff. But if I could do it, I would love to go, hunting for retics. But I mean, they're different though. They're simpler than I think an arboreal species. And well, that is interesting though, that to bring this up. So some people, like, I don't know if you've ever seen a retic perched like a green tree python, or sometimes they do. When they're babies, they do. And I think when they hatch, they're low. They're kind of on the food chain. They're low, right? They're easy prey items. Not many of them survive. You got birds and all kinds of animals that pick them up and eat them. So they go, their lifestyle kind of changes throughout their life, right? So they may live more up in the trees or in a different habitat type, in the same habitat, but just utilize different parts of it when they're babies as compared to when they're adults. And so that's one of the interesting things I think about reticulated pythons is how it's called niche partitioning. So, you may see it behave differently as a baby than it does when it's an adult. And it may feed differently. Everything about it may be different. So, and then when they're adults, they're at the top of the food chain, So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
to me.
it really is.
So.
They have to go through a lot in their little lives,
right,
to become on
and
top.
That's right. I mean, I don't mean to bring attention to anything negative about retics, but every once in a while you'll see videos of them. They do eat people, and they have known to eat people in certain areas of Indonesia, and that's just. I don't know. I saw a video not too long ago about this woman. It was a small lady. She must have left her hut open or something like that. And these animals don't know. It's food. And you got to be careful. It's like if you're sleeping on the wild here, like up in northern Idaho, there's bears. You can easily get killed by a bear too, by bears or wolves, so.
Much more common than this.
Yeah, way more common. But I mean, it just goes to show you, that they're top predators, man. You got to respect them.
Definitely. And it's hard to imagine what things are like over there for people who've never been to a developing country. But yes, a lot of those people believe that having a snake in their hut is a sacred thing.
Right. Yeah.
So they're not out chopping all the heads off usually, although I have been sent some basin pictures from different friends out there in the jungle who know about my connection with the emeralds and will show me things that people thought it was a viper and got scared and stuff. So it happens everywhere, both sides of the spectrum, from sacred to how folks here in Arkansas think of them.
That reminds me of a video I saw of this a baby. I don't know where in Indonesia this was, but it was a little baby, a kid, maybe 1 or 2 years old, and it was sitting right next to a cobra, like a real cobra, and and he was hitting the cobra, playing with it like it was a pet toy or something. And the parent must have been videotaping it. There's somebody holding the camera watching this happen, and the kid didn't get bit. I mean, the snake didn't really seem to be too annoyed. I mean, I don't recommend anybody do that. I'd never do that. I'd probably get bit. But it just goes to show you the cultural, the different perspectives and culture. And, in our culture, something like that may be feared. Look at these rattlesnake roundups and people just killing these animals, for whatever reason. And then you got cultures like that halfway around the world, and they're like gods. They're the spiritual animals that they worship or whatever.
Our license plate on our vehicle says Zaltis, and that's the name of one of my males. And Zaltis is an ancient Methostopian entity that brought wealth, happiness, and good fortune all around, fertility, and good health to anybody who had this sacred green snake come into their house.
Oh wow,
So
that's
that
cool.
was like the perfect thing for us. And we thought, well, Zaltis is cool because you could actually Google it, and the first thing that comes up is that story.
Oh, it's definitely something I'll do.
Neat.
Yeah, super
Now, something there, I didn't know what this was, but then I saw Tara mention that, I think it was Tara's, that she really wanted one of these. And it's something that you're really known for. And I'm going to totally chop up the name because I didn't Google it, which I wish I would have to get a pronunciation. But the Kalatoa, is that a phase or a morph? Tell us about that.
That is a locality of super dwarf. So it's actually the name of an island, and it's actually Palu Kalatoa. I don't know what it translates to in Indonesian. I know Paula or Paulu means island, so it's Kalatoa Island. I don't know what the background behind the name or why it was called that, but that's a locality of super dwarf. And I do have, that's mainly primarily the peers that I would. That's what I focus on. There's other localities. Some people are really into, collecting all the different localities, Madu, Karumpa, and those are rare in the States because of the ban on importation. Before that, they were still even rare, but you could still get them. But to me, I think they're all the same subspecies. So, I mean, a Madu, in my eyes, is still the same thing as a Kalatoa, just a little different looks. So that's just the way I see it. Other people would love to disagree with that. And hey, whatever, that's, well, I mean, what I see in these different localities is they all share the same physical characteristics. Some of them are more dominant in each specific locality, but they all share the same variation of color and pattern. And some would say, well, this specific pattern, look, or color is indicative of this island or this island. So those people would say that, well, this looks like a Madu, so it's probably a different subspecies. But there's really no data to back that up. No one's done phylogenetic analysis of the animals, compared their DNA. And if they have, I haven't found any papers. I mean, the islands are so remote. They're really very in the middle of nowhere, and it's hard to get there. I only know really of one person who's done it. I don't know if you ever heard of Daniel Solis. He used to be the owner of Reptile Factory, but he's gone there a couple times, and he's the only hobbyist that I know that's gone out there and actually taken photos of these animals on different islands, on all the different, most of the, one of the most popular islands, and because there's a ton of islands out there, and I think he's basically said the same thing as me, is that they basically all kind of look the same on all the islands, and they may differ a little bit. Whether or not they're different subspecies, that's up for debate. And I think really the DNA analysis would prove that. And I mean, if they are, then cool. I mean, I don't see. I mean, there's no evidence to support it, so I kind of lean the other way.
When you find enough evidence to look at one thing, it's and it makes sense, but we always keep our minds open. I could tell you're one of those scientific minds. One of the things that I'm interested to talk about, I think we have about 12 minutes left, is I want to know what is going to be different between breeding the Gila monsters and the croc monitors, different from breeding snakes, because I am very interested in that.
So retics are relatively easy to breed. There's certain things you have to do to get them to do it. But if you have adult retics, they're sexually mature. They basically, you don't need to cycle them with cold temperatures, or I mean, it's basically in the equator, it's basically a constant temperature and humidity throughout the year. Light cycles the same, so you don't have to light. Some people say you do, but I mean, really, honestly, you want to mimic their natural environment, and there's not much to it. You gotta feed them. They need the females need to build up a fat reserve. Once they've done that, then it's just a matter of them mating, and that's it.
But you have to
now,
take the eggs out and put them in an incubator and all that.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's with any reptile species. I would recommend some kind of success rate when you control, the incubation, because the reptile may not know, we know exactly what they need, and they may just have a few. If you, maternal incubation, you may have just a few hatch. Whereas if you did it, like artificial, you all would hatch. So you have a better success
Right,
rate.
because they don't have all access to all the resources they have in the wild when they lay a clutch.
Well, I mean, with boas, I mean, I've never bred boas, but I think it would be harder to breed them because, and even tree boas, because you basically the enclosure is their incubator. You have to make sure everything is just right, and they move around their enclosure, so that's kind of harder to control. Because like, you know what I'm saying? Like you take the eggs out, put it in the incubator, and they're just there.
Well, we did learn that on our first pregnancy because we were just letting her do her regular thing, and she was never locked up. She was our queen of the jungle, free roam all the time, and she did not choose the best spot to sit in. And so
there you go.
Her gestation was extra long, but her babies came premature. So it was a whole thing. But then the second time we learned, turn the heat up a little bit and don't let them out during that time. And it was perfect. So, but I feel like live birth would be way easier because all I have to do is take care of that animal. I don't have to do all the incubating and all of the egg stuff.
Well, it is stressful, and I've had my power go out, and I mean, you really got to watch them. You got to check them a couple times a day. But retic eggs aren't hard to incubate, as long as you maintain the proper parameters of temperature and humidity. They're going to hatch. So, but I've never bred croc monitors, and I've never bred Gila monsters before. But I think out of the two, I think more people have bred Gila monsters, but they may be harder to breed because they brumate. And I've been told that you have to keep the adults, well, the female, when they're brumating at like 50 degrees, around 50 degrees. So I thought, how am I going to do that? Well, I might get a wine cooler or something, or an incubator that has that can cool down to that, and put them in a box or something, and hope for the best. I talked to somebody, they had a female die because it got too cold. So if you can brumate them and get them through that cycle, they will lay the eggs. And then I don't know much about incubating Gila monster eggs, but I don't think they're as easy as retics. I think they're a little harder to get them to hatch. Croc monitors, on the other hand, I think what it is getting them to breed. I think it's not getting them to breed, it's getting them to produce fertile eggs. And I know I've heard a lot of people getting eggs, but they're infertile. So there's a lot of missing information with croc monitors that I think a lot of people are starting to figure out now. Gila monsters aren't such a mystery to breed. Now people have been doing it for decades, and there's books written on them. But croc monitors are totally different, and people are, I think, just now starting to figure out what they need. But once you get eggs, I was told that they can lay 2 to 3 clutches a year, of up to 5 eggs.
Wow.
A clutch. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's normal, or see, that's another thing. People don't know what normal is for these animals, so because they're just not bred in captivity. Even zoos have a hard time doing it. So, I mean, I'm just following along in other people's footsteps and kind of learning along the way with these animals. So
what is Mike Stefani breed? Is that those are monitors, right?
Mike Stefani. Oh, he I think mainly he focuses on water monitors. So they're easier. They're not as a mystery as croc monitors.
He's real successful.
And the thing about what's that?
He's real successful with it. So I didn't know if it was the same.
Well, see, another thing is that croc monitors are arboreal, so they live in the trees. Yeah, they're like a large tree monitor, and that also makes them adds to the mystery because they're harder to observe in the wild because they're high up. You know, you can't really watch what they do, and they're fast. You know, and they hide. You know, they hide very well. So I think I've heard a lot of the ones they catch in the wild are you know, it's when they're cutting down trees and stuff. They fall to the ground and stuff, and they collect them. So I mean, they don't just climb up a tree and catch one because they're just too fast, and they're aggressive too. So, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, retics for me are easy to breed. I every year I produce, you know, at least 8 clutches. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But they're not. When at first it was hard. They were hard to figure out at first. But there's a lot of misinformation out there. Some people will be honest with you. Some people won't be. It's a lot of trial and error and failure. I've had animals die, you know, from being egg bound. I've had whole clutches go bad for I have no idea why. You know, and they were almost ready to hatch. You know, so it can be a rough ride, but for the most part, you know, they're not that hard. It's for me, it's yet to be seen what it takes to. I hope I'm successful with the Gilas and the Crocs.
Me too.
So, yeah.
I wonder if we're allowed to have Gila monsters in Arkansas, because that would be something
Probably.
really cool.
Well, we're allowed. Well, I know in states like Arizona, Nevada, you can have them in California, but you need a permit. Washington, I think they're okay in Washington. I've seen them for sale at reptile shows. Idaho, they're okay. Montana, I think you're okay with the Gilas. And I mean, ironically, well, I mean, interestingly enough, water monitors and croc monitors are illegal to keep in Washington. You can't keep or sell them, but you can have them for educational and display purposes for a certain period of time.
Where are you?
So I bring them to shows.
Where are you located?
I'm in northern Idaho. So Idaho's different, so they're legal here. But and I live about half an hour away from Washington, the state line. So, like, you know, I can't sell them to anybody in Washington. But in Montana, I don't think there's any bans on them. And Gila monsters, I know there's a very like a popular, well-known breeder in pro reptile. No, who's professional breeders? I think he's a guy in Whitefish, Montana, that he's been breeding Gilas for decades. Yeah.
Thanks, Ghost. Ghost says we can have Gila monsters in Arkansas.
Oh, cool. Without a permit? Well, there you go.
Nice. Well, maybe that's something I'll look forward to in the future. Well, we're sure looking forward to keeping up on your breeding projects with something brand new that you've never dealt with. It'll be interesting to see the differences. Oh, I know something I wanted to ask you, because I answered this question the other day and I meant to Google it to make sure that what I said was correct. It had been a long time since I looked. But can you just give us a quick lowdown on the difference between brumation and hibernation? I think, okay, this is what I remembered, that brumation means that they can wake up and actually come out and enjoy and bask in the sun during the right kind of days, where hibernation is a total sleep through the whole season. Is that true?
I don't know. I've never heard anyone say reptiles hibernate. I know mammals hibernate.
And mammals hibernate and some reptiles brumate. And I just wondered, like, what's the difference? Is that it? Is that they can wake up sometimes during the season?
Well, I mean, don't some snakes brumate their eggs? And it's different than like going into like some type of sleep period. Isn't that what it's called when an animal when a snake incubates their eggs? It's called brumation. But when lizards, I guess when Gila monsters they hibernate, it's called brumation. I see.
Idea. So the word could be being used 2 different ways. We're gonna have to Google that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm interested to know. I'm gonna Google it too.
It's always fun to not know something, because then you get to learn.
Exactly.
And I know another personal question, something I thought of earlier, was you said you're working on a master's program?
Yes.
And you already have your bachelor's degree. You're in the medical field. Just give us a little personal info on your academic background.
So I have a bachelor's in zoology, and I work in the medical field as a board-certified surgical first assistant. So I work in surgery as basically like a surgeon's right-hand man. And I've been doing that since I was in the military. And I work at a trauma center, a local trauma center, with a night shift. and I work three 12-hour shifts. So I have the rest of the week off where I can spend all the time I want my reptile collection. And I'm working I'm almost done. I'm taking my last class in my master's program, and I'm focusing on paleontology.
Paleontology, how interesting.
Yeah, I love it. It's if I wasn't, I don't know, if I could find a job being a paleontologist, I would, but I don't know. Those are kind of few and far in between to find those jobs.
Yes, you have an extremely intense job. My husband is a dentist, so
Oh,
I
cool.
know just about his assistants and the things that they have to do assisting with those little microsurgeries. So
Yeah, cool.
I know
Yeah,
a little bit about what you're doing, and it's very intense.
sometimes we do dental procedures where we take out every tooth. There's a lot of cool stuff, but not. I mean, it's surgical. But yeah, I can
Yes.
imagine being a dentist would be. I mean, no offense to your husband, but I don't like dentists, and I don't know many people that do. But they do a great job. I mean, we got to have our teeth, healthy teeth. Somebody's got to do it, and a lot of respect for that.
Yes, I tell my husband when the patients come in and they say, I do not want to be here. I hate coming here. And I say, just tell them to think of the alternative. As in,
Yeah,
you
right.
don't have a dentist to go to.
Yeah.
That was worse.
Yeah.
But yes, it is hard going into those situations where it's going to hurt, usually, often.
Very true.
Brian?
I
Go
try to
ahead.
put off the dentist as much as possible, but I got to go. So.
Yep, it's something we have to do.
Yeah.
Well, we were really grateful to have you here today. I've learned a lot, and I know that my friends out there have learned. I want to say thanks to Ghost and Morella and Kat, Tara, and I saw some other people on here too that I know, and some new friends that I hadn't seen before or don't see often. So, and Heather, of course. Before we go, I'll just give a quick update because I think Brian will be interested in this too. We just recently, last weekend, had our very first Happy Basins adoption party, and we did handpick 2 couples that we positively loved to come here to Happy Basins and adopt a baby emerald. And we had one last weekend, and one is going to be in 3 weeks. And that is going to be Heather, who's here in our comments today. So that's super exciting for us to get to adopt out our babies. Another thing I was going to say to Brian is I know that Tom Crutchfield I hope he gets to see videos of you and Hannibal together, because I know how much he loves to see the animals treated like family members.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you, Brian. Just tell us at the end here where we can find you. And I saw somebody who has a lot of your animals on here, CNB Reptile, wants one of those shirts. So tell us where we can find your merch too.
You can contact me through my Instagram. Oh wait, are you there still?
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
Chris just got trigger happy.
I don't have anything posted on my website, but I do have a website at hellcreekreptiles.com. You can contact me through Morph Market at dwarfretic.com. And if you want a shirt, I really don't push merch that much, but if you want one, reach out. If you buy a reptile from me, I usually throw one in for free.
Nice. Thank you, Brian. We'll look forward to chatting again and hearing all about your project.
For sure. Nice talking to you.
Bye. Goodbye,
Bye.
everybody.
See you.
Bye.
Under neon lights so cold they hum, shadows of scales where whispers come. A world of emeralds and tales untold, chasing the warmth in a world so cold. Happy basins, we rise and glow, charmed Trojan stories the world should know. Emerald dreams in a twilight sky, together we thrive as the days go by. Amy speaks with a voice so kind.